hostility to India really has become the raison d'etre for their feeling that they can exist.
Right.
The army has a vested interest in promoting the image of a hostile India, because that is how the army can remain from being confined to the barracks and to actually ruling the country. But what has happened as a result of this, the army and the establishment have brainwashed people in Pakistan who are like people anywhere.
Yes. Hello and welcome to StratNewsGlobal. My guest today is diplomat, national security analyst, and a well-known face in the Delhi circles, about someone who is very knowledgeable about various countries, but more particularly on Pakistan, and now an author, Mr. Satish Chandra, former Foreign Service officer. He has just written this book, Life Well Spent, and you are on our evening program, The Gist. I'm Nitin Gokhale. Welcome to this program, sir, and thank you for your time and thank you for writing this book.
Thanks a million, Nitin. It's great to be here. Great to be with a friend and great to be with someone who's running so successfully a wonderful channel.
Thank you very much, sir. So let me come to your speciality, if I can call it, Pakistan. You had, 3 postings in Pakistan right at the beginning in 1970. Then
No, actually, my Pakistan dealings in terms of postings were two. 69 to 71 till just before the conflict.
Yes.
I was probably the last out
to leave
before links broke, and this was 22nd November
1971.
71. So I was posted in Karachi.
Yes.
I was a very junior officer. I was a second secretary.
Right.
And then the next was as High Commissioner to Pakistan from 1995 to the end of 98, I think 30th December 98.
Yes, you have mentioned that.
So that was 3.5 years. But then from headquarters, I dealt with Pakistan on the desk as Under Secretary and Deputy Secretary from 1973-74, and then from 1986 to 89.
And that was at Afghanistan, Pakistan.
Yes, yeah.
I was reading that, and that time Afghanistan was in a very peculiar situation. Najibullah government,
That's right.
Pakistan was in turmoil. So tell our viewers about your experience as living in Pakistan first, and then we'll come to the politics of it.
You know, living in Pakistan for an Indian diplomat is not easy. Let's be very clear on that.
Right.
It's not very easy because there is 24/7 surveillance.
Right.
It is of 2 types, actually 3 types. There's mobile surveillance, so whenever you're moving around in your vehicles, you're followed by someone else.
Right.
There's static surveillance. Your office, your house is under surveillance.
Absolutely.
Your phones are tapped.
Correct.
And in some cases, I do know of this when I was High Commissioner, that even the wives of some of the officers who went for treatment, they were followed to the hospital.
Oh.
You know, it's that
bad, yeah.
that bad. And every now and then there was an abduction, a knifing,
Yes.
a stabbing
My God.
of our officials. So
Hostile.
it is a hostel. And then for diplomats, unlike our colleagues from Pakistan who are posted here, when all and sundry all Indians
Yes.
go to their houses readily, in Pakistan, this was difficult in some phases. And senior officials would not really come to your house unless you had invited it was a delegation from
Right.
India. They tended to keep off.
Keep off, yeah.
And in fact, when I was there first, which was much more hostile,
Right.
this is 69 to 71,
Just run up to the war.
even foreigners would not would hesitate to meet you.
Right.
So it is tough.
It is. But one of the things that we come to you for advice and inputs is on the Indus Water Treaty. And in the larger way, your monograph, the famous monograph that you wrote on Pakistan, How to Deal with Pakistan, which I think is one of the guiding principles of the current dispensation also in terms of how to deal with Pakistan. Tell us a little more about that. What is your view on how should India deal with Pakistan?
Well, what I am saying and what I have written,
Yes.
many of my colleagues who are also experts on Pakistan
Don't
don't
agree.
agree.
Okay.
I have a much harder line
Right.
on Pakistan than most. And the reason is very simple.
Right.
The reason is that hostility to India really has become the raison d'etre for their feeling that they can exist.
Right.
The army has a vested interest in promoting the image of a hostile India, because that is how the army can remain from being confined to the barracks
Right.
and to actually ruling the country. But what has happened as a result of this, the army and the establishment have brainwashed people in Pakistan who are like people anywhere.
Yes.
Constant media, negative media on India, painting us as a very nasty country, which is got hegemonistic designs on Pakistan, which is not the case. And if you look at the relationship, Pakistanis have built it around a number of myths that India is hegemonistic and wants the disintegration of Pakistan, that India is a Hindu state and therefore hostile to Pakistan, that India wants to do all possible nasty things to Pakistan. Now, if you look at the facts, this is totally incorrect.
Right.
The amount that India has done for Pakistan, perhaps no one else could have done. I mean, I can quote 2 or 3 things. You look at 1947-48, at a time when Pakistan was fighting us in Kashmir. We released monies to them, right? $75 million.
Right.
We also have not claimed the pre-partition debts of $300 million. You spoke of Indus waters.
Yes.
Under the Indus waters, normal, proper, fair apportionment of waters, we should have got at least 40% of the waters. We are getting only 20%.
Right.
Because we have been overly generous and given them access to much more of the water.
Correct.
You take the Simla agreement. Here we gave away 5,400 square miles of territory without asking for anything. Can you imagine any country which has won a war would do it? We returned their POWs, 93,000. I was administering the POWs in India in 72.
Right.
We gave them. We supported their getting back into the Commonwealth, into the non-aligned movement. And Dr. Manmohan Singh government, more recently in 2013 or it was thereabouts, also allowed the EU to give them duty-free access to their cotton without raising any cotton products.
Exactly. Yeah.
Without raising any objection. Who were the sufferers? India, because our own exporters suffered.
Exactly.
So this is the amount of good that we are doing to that country, and they still export terrorism day in and day out. So my belief has been that Pakistan's DNA, to put it in medical terms, is faulty. And no matter how much good you do to Pakistan, they will still continue to export terror and undermine you in every possible way.
Absolutely.
So therefore, my prescription, it is not normal for anybody to make such a prescription, but that is normal. And dealing with a normal country.
Yes,
It is not a normal country.
Yeah, it is not.
It is a DNA issue. Okay?
Right. Okay.
So my view is that we need to undermine Pakistan, and there are many things we can do. The Indus Waters Treaty is only one of them. I think we should walk out of it, and we have got a very good case to do so, considering their export of terror.
Right.
And certainly, hats off to the present government. They have taken a much firmer line vis-a-vis Pakistan. I think we should have done the surgical strikes. Balakot had earlier regimes done it.
Yeah.
Perhaps Pakistanis may have learnt a lesson.
Right.
And also on the Indus Waters Treaty, I think the present government is trying to maximize, which is what I prescribe, maximize the use of the western rivers
Right.
as well as the eastern rivers, which We are allowing waters even which we could use into that country.
True.
So all that should be, addressed. A firmer line, no dialogue, until and unless there is some evidence that they have a rethinking.
Yeah.
And my belief is, I hope I am wrong,
Right.
but my belief is that the brainwashing of entire generations of Pakistanis has gone so far that there can be no change.
Exactly.
So I don't think it's going to.
No, so I think, nobody speaks in such clear terms about Pakistan. There's always a wishy-washy kind of an approach that, people-to-people contact should be there, forget the politics. But I'm glad you put this on record.
But Nitin, I'll tell you, people-to-people contact. I'm now talking of 69, 70.
Yes.
I was in Karachi.
Yeah, you were in Karachi, yes.
From Karachi alone, we were issuing 1,000 visas a day. That's 30,000 a month, which is nearly 3.5 lakhs a year.
Yes.
This was the amount of people to people. What has it achieved?
Nothing.
And that is only from Karachi. Dhaka, which was a part then of Pakistan, was probably doing even more.
Double, perhaps.
But I don't know how many they were doing, but they were also doing a large number.
That's right.
So we've had all these people to nothing has been achieved because look, I don't blame the people of Pakistan per se. They have been conditioned. This is conditioning.
Conditioning, yes.
It's a Pavlovian response.
That's right. Yeah.
So the Pavlovian response is that they will bite. They've been trained to bite you, so they'll bite you.
So I'm tempted to share one real life anecdote. This was exactly 10 years ago in 2013, January. There was a track 2, my first and last track 2 with the Pakistanis at the behest of the Americans in Dubai. And we were speaking at a so-called session on where can the two militaries, Indian and Pakistani militaries, have CBMs. This is 2013, remember. And there were 2 recently retired Pakistani brigadiers on the other side.
Right.
And a very famous newspaper owner, editor of Pakistan, Najam Sethi.
Okay, yes.
And I was on the Indian side, and there were 2 researchers, young researchers, ladies from IDSA and
So you were fighting,
you
were fighting a lone battle.
So I was told by Peter Bergen and Steve Cole in that they were the ones, the organizers, that Nazam wants to speak at the end. He wants to have the last word. So can you be the second last speaker? I said, fine. I mean, can I do anything about it? No. So let me start. So in the course of my presentation, I said CBMs are difficult between the militaries as it is they are facing each other. And secondly, the Indian military has started reorienting itself towards the northern borders because that is a bigger challenge. They know how to deal with Pakistan. They've dealt body blow to them for 4 times, defeated them militarily 4 times. So I don't think we need to be too bothered about it. It's like a nuisance, the Pakistani military as far as Indian military is concerned. The brigadier, recently retired brigadier, got up in the middle of my presentation and said, wait, we are your enemy number 1, not China. So there you are. I mean, the mindset and the brainwashing that you're talking about.
No, it's sad.
Yeah.
It's sad, particularly for me. I am.
You come from that part of.
Born in Lahore, and I am a Multani, which is the heart.
The heart of the Pakistani Punjabi politics, or the army comes from there. But let's move away from Pakistan, sir. Let me take you to your last assignment as a civil servant. That was in the NSCS. What is now the NSCS? That time it was, of course, JIC to begin with, and you set it up.
Yeah.
So tell us how it was in the beginning. What was the challenge, and how do you see the current development in terms of the expansion of the NSCS, or the way they are now inputting to all sectors of national security?
Before I address this,
Yes.
just let me say this is also something which happened to me, which maybe is exceptional.
Right.
But, this is the beauty of the foreign service. I am a foreign service, I was a foreign service officer. But 10 years of my life, I spent outside.
5
years with the Department of Economic Affairs, 1 in Delhi,
Yeah.
where I did economic work, foreign assistance to India, and 4 years in Washington, D.C. on their payroll.
Yes. Exactly.
And 5 years then in the National Security Council. So let me tell you, it came as a surprise to me that my assignment to the National Security Council Secretariat. It hadn't then been set up. No, my posting had been decided earlier by Foreign Secretary Raghunath at that time. He had been on a visit to Pakistan in September or August, and I had finished 3 years.
Of 1998.
1990. I had finished my 3 years, and he said, "Well, what are your plans, etc., etc." And finally, he indicated that why don't you come to Delhi as secretary? So I said, I'll be happy to do so. And there the matter rested.
Okay.
Till I got a phone call in October or thereabouts from a colleague in the ministry saying that Mr. Brijesh Mishra wants you to report immediately because he wants you to do this national security. I said, what is it?
What is that?
He said, he will tell you.
Yeah, exactly.
So then I of course said, fine, if that is the desire, I'll come. I, in any case, was moving to Delhi.
Right.
And that is all right. So end of 98, I moved to Delhi. And when I met Mr. Brijesh Mishra and he told me, he said, look, this is a new thing we are doing. It hasn't been set up yet. Right now, you are chairman JIC, Joint Intelligence Committee. And this Security Council Secretariat you have to set up. And he was very honest. He said, look, this is an experiment.
Sure.
We don't know whether it will succeed or not. And it will be only 2 governments down the line. Whether we will...
He was so prescient.
No. He said that, look, these are new structures. We haven't had them.
Right.
And we need to work this through. And our government will come and go. There'll be another government and another government.
Right.
And it is, if these 2 governments persist with it, that it will stay.
Right.
Otherwise, it's one of
disintegrate.
those...
Correct.
So, now let's get back to what you asked more directly.
Right.
The National Security Council Secretariat was, or the National Security Council was essential with its adjuncts, of which the Secretariat was.
Of course. Yeah.
This was essential because no one in the government of India at the time was looking at security in a holistic manner. And what do I mean by holistic? It's not just defense and internal security or some aspects of foreign policy, etc. These are all conventional things.
Absolutely.
It was non-conventional issues. Cyber security.
Right.
Cyber warfare.
Health security.
Health security, education, science and technology, pandemics, you name it.
Yes.
Everything is there. And it was with that in mind that you have an organization which will look at all aspects of security, both current and futuristic. A thing which is not a threat today can be a threat tomorrow. You have to conceive it.
Right.
And I must say that the support that one received from the NSA, Mr. Brijesh Mishra, and his successor subsequently, Mr. Dixit, was amazing. It was total. And anything that one suggested was backed up if they felt it was right. And backed up 100%. And look, we were a new creature.
Sure.
We were a new boy in town.
Right.
And the point is that initially, many of the departments took us a little bit for granted. But with the support of the NSAs, that all stopped very soon. Within a year or 2, people started taking us seriously and a consultation process. And the other point which was very important about the NSCS was that people soon realized that we really had no axe to grind. We were looking at it purely from a national... I mean, there were issues on which I took stands which MEA didn't like, my parent ministry.
Yes.
But I was able to do this because I had the support of the National Security Advisor. And it was very clear that this entity is one which will think beyond institutional loyalties. It has only one loyalty.
National interest. Which is, I think, aptly put.
And your second portion of your question is that I think it has developed very well. we were a shoestring organization.
Yes.
You see Sardar Patel Bhavan, what it was like when we
Kargil
moved there.
Review Committee.
Yes, we interacted at that
Yes,
time.
yes.
And see where it is now.
Right.
The budget has increased, the staff has increased, the premises are now what they should be.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think it is now performing brilliantly, and it has got an excellent NSA. I think few could match Mr. Doval in terms of his understanding. He was, of course, a past master on intelligence and internal security related issues, but his grasp on foreign policy,
Yes.
which is essential for this job,
Yes.
is I mean, at the time when it was being when he hadn't yet been appointed as NSA.
Right.
I do recall some colleagues from my service saying that, does he understand foreign policy? So I said, I've been working with him at VIF.
Yeah. Correct.
And his grasp is no less than any one of us.
Exactly.
I mean, he's in the same league, he understands.
Sure.
And he articulates. And
Right.
he is outstanding. So I think we are fortunate that he is the NSA.
And now the longest serving NSA, 10 years.
That's right.
Almost 10
And
years.
it has developed very well.
Sure. And the expanse under which they work now, I mean,
No,
as an outsider.
it's a grueling thing.
Right.
They are doing is
Absolutely.
fantastic.
No, I entirely agree. But I think I have to ask you this one last question on the Kargil Review Committee. You were the member secretary, and I think from the Kargil Review Committee came out the GOM, which was and the task force which were set up, and they were the forerunners to what we are seeing in national security reforms. So, tell us more about that work that you did post Kargil Review Committee recommendations. And how it sort of came into those tasks.
This is, I was mentioning to you when we were talking,
Yes.
a lot of kismat involved in life. I was very fortunate
Right.
that I was plunged into the deep end.
Right.
I knew nothing very much about security. Yes, Pakistan, Bangladesh, you are involved in some security-related issues that are there.
Sure.
But how does the Indian system work?
Right.
What are the institutions? How do they function? What is their role, etc., etc.
Right.
I learned this very fast on the job because we had the Kargil conflict,
Right.
with which we were also dealing.
Yes.
And then I had a bird's eye view of security issues because the Kargil Review Committee interviewed a lot of smart analysts like you who knew a lot about security from the outside,
Right.
as well as the people inside.
Inside, yes.
So the Kargil Review Committee, I think, did a very good job, and it was a learning experience because on hard security matters, one learnt a great deal through the process of the report writing and the interviewing.
Right.
I mean, we interviewed hundreds of people.
I remember that.
We went to the places where the conflict took place.
Yes.
We went to Siachen and all that also. We flew there. We flew the Kargil Heights, etc.
Right.
And it really produced a report. But there were many recommendations. The cardinal recommendation was that there must be a holistic review of security.
Yes.
And for that purpose, they recommended that a committee be set up, and therefore a group of ministers were set up under Mr. Advani
Right.
to take a holistic review of security. Now, in the very first meeting, and by then I had been sensitized to the nature of the NSCS sufficiently. At the very first meeting with Mr. Advani, Mr. Jaswant Singh, Yashwant Sinha, and George Fernandez, I posed the query. I said, it's a holistic.
Right.
So what about economic issues, etc.? Are we
Not hard security alone.
the soft security issues? Are we to look at those?
Yes.
You have to take a view
Yeah, exactly.
today.
Yes.
And they decided that, look, we will look at it more in the traditional pattern. So they decided to set up 4 task forces:
Correct.
intelligence, higher management of defense,
Yes.
internal security.
Yeah.
So issues, intelligence.
Intelligence.
So issues like these were taken.
Right.
and the soft security issues they did not look at. And each of those task forces prepared the reports. They were headed and manned by very well-known experts,
Exactly.
the best in the country, if I may say so.
Yes, of course.
And they produced their reports, which were then went to the cabinet secretary and the concerned ministries, and through a process of dialogue, the group of ministers
Came up.
teased out the recommendations.
Absolutely.
And these recommendations numbered around 350, of which the NSCS
Yes.
was involved with the implementation.
Right.
So we got involved then not only with writing the reports, which were done by us,
Right.
but also actually overseeing the implementation of those reforms. And that's when I mentioned about the shortcomings
I know. Yes.
that
you have.
were there,
Correct.
and why we were not able to implement.
All of them. And the CDS
Many
was,
of
for instance,
CDS was
Chief of Defense Staff was one of those. But I'm going to take a break in this episode of about 20 minutes or so. We're going to come back on the part 2 of this conversation, because this is a very interesting conversation. You will not get somebody who's witness to a long history of India's foreign service as well as India's national security. So I'm going to come back in the second part. But thank you very much
Thank you.
for your time, sir.